There's tension in my thoughts when I consider Donald Trump. Is he a genius or is he a moron? Listening to Trump speak, I've never had the impression that he was especially well-informed or especially intelligent or well-read. My perception of him is as a dishonest salesman. On the other hand, there is a proverb that says, "You shall know a tree by its fruit." In other words, a thing is what it does. Intelligence is about the ability to take on a complicated task and get the results you want. And by this definition, there's a good argument that Donald Trump is intelligent or has some intelligence. He's been able to take on complicated tasks in different domains, from real estate and business, where you could argue that he inherited or exaggerated much of his wealth. But regardless, he still has built and maintained a world-famous business. In entertainment, he's been the star of a popular reality TV show, and in politics, he ran a successful presidential campaign that was, frankly, unthinkable even while he was executing the campaign. Donald Trump has succeeded in a wide variety of challenging, complicated tasks. Just like it wouldn't make sense to call a tree that produced apples anything but an apple tree, how does it make sense to consider Donald Trump, who has succeeded in these complicated tasks, anything but a genius? One moment that comes to mind whenever I consider the issue of Donald Trump's intelligence is this moment from a presidential debate, where the debate moderator asks Donald Trump about which leg of the nuclear triad is the most important. And Donald Trump gives a rambling answer that doesn't answer the question, and conveys that he doesn't really understand what the nuclear triad is.
What's your priority among our nuclear triad?
Well, first of all, I think we need somebody absolutely that we can trust.
Who is totally responsible, who really knows what he or she is doing, that is so powerful and so important. And one of the things that I'm frankly most proud of is that in 2003, 2004, I was totally against going into Iraq because you're going to destabilize the Middle East. I called it very strongly, and it was very important. But we have to be extremely vigilant and extremely careful when it comes to nuclear. Nuclear changes the whole ballgame. Frankly, I would have said, get out of Syria, get out. If we didn't have the power of weaponry today, the power is so massive that we can't just leave areas that 50 years ago or 75 years ago we wouldn't care. It was hand-to-hand combat. The biggest problem this world has today is not President Obama with global warming, which is inconceivable. This is what he's saying. The biggest problem we have today is nuclear proliferation, and having some maniac, having some madman go out and get a nuclear weapon. That's, in my opinion, that is the single biggest problem that our country faces.
Three legs of the triad, though. Do you have a priority? Because I want to go to Senator Rubio after that.
I think to me, nuclear is just the power, the devastation is very important to me.
The debate moderator asked Trump to clarify his answer, and Trump was unable to, just continuing to ramble. Trump's ramblings make it seem like he doesn't know what the nuclear triad is and doesn't have a good answer. And he's just trying to instead brazen his way through the response and run out the clock. Trump was widely criticized for this answer after the debate. One thing that a lot of Trump's critics leave out when they criticize Trump for this moment is that the debate moderator actually explained to Trump what the nuclear triad is when he originally posed the question.
And he mentioned the triad. The B-52s are older than I am. The missiles are old, the submarines are aging out.
So Trump has no excuse for not knowing what the triad is in this moment. It was just told to him what it was. The question about which leg of the triad is most important is a challenging and interesting question. I think that the complexities of this question extend into strategic and philosophical domains. Each leg of the triad is relevant for different reasons. Bombers let us threaten our enemies. You can put flights of bombers loaded with nuclear weapons into the air and send them out over an enemy and call them back up until the moment you release the bombs. Bombers allow us to strike with precision targets at sea or on land. Bombers let us threaten our enemies specifically. ICBMs, on the other hand, are cheap, they're reliable, and they allow us the ability to launch massive retaliatory strikes on a country. Submarines, the third leg of the triad, on the other hand, allow us to stealthily position large numbers of missiles off a country's coast. The purpose of submarines is first strike, delivering volleys of nuclear missiles before our enemies know that we've launched them, to either annihilate our enemy or annihilate their capability to retaliate. The three legs have three different purposes: threatening with bombers, preemptively attacking with submarines, and retaliating with ICBMs. So to get a presidential candidate's answer as to which of these legs is most important is actually to ask the candidate something about how they think, how they prioritize, how they strategize with our nuclear arsenal. I think it's a really worthwhile question to pose to a candidate, and it's an answer that I'd be interested in getting. Trump's answer, which is that he thinks the power and devastation of nuclear is really important, is essentially the same as saying, pass, I have no answer. I think saying pass might actually be a better answer to the question, because then you could at least pretend that Trump had understood it or knew what the question was. But regardless, instead he rambled, conveyed no information, and let the question elapse. However, when you think about Trump's answer, you'll see that it's not much different from the answer that any other candidate would give. I don't mean that Jeb Bush or Marco Rubio would have answered that they think the power and devastation of nuclear is really important. I don't think that. I think other presidential candidates would have given a soundbite style answer. They would have said something coherent and on topic that would have sounded presidential, but it would have conveyed no more meaningful information than what Trump conveyed. Here we can see examples of Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio weighing in on the same question about the nuclear triad.
Why is the nuclear triad so important for people who don't understand what that is in a world of where Islamic Jihad is something people are so concerned about?
It's important because it's been part of the security arrangement that has kept us safe since the post-World War II era. And we've seen a lack of investment in it, and we've seen, we need to refurbish it and strengthen it. And the fact that he wouldn't know what it is kind of, that's one of those questions that I think you have to answer in a thoughtful way if you're running for President of the United States.
First, let's explain to people home what the triad is.
I mean, a lot of people haven't heard that terminology before. The triad is our ability in the United States to conduct nuclear attacks using airplanes, using missiles launched from silos or from the ground, and also from our nuclear subs, ability to attack. And it's important, all three of them are critical. It gives us the ability at deterrence. Now, some have become more critical than others, for example, the submarines. And that's the Ohio-class submarine that needs to be modernized. The air component also needs to be modernized. The B-52, as someone earlier pointed out, is an outdated model that was flown by the grandparents of people that are flying it now. And we need a serious modernization program as well on our silo-launched missiles. All three are critical for the defense.
Bush says that the nuclear triad is important because it's a part of the security apparatus that has kept us safe since the Cold War. Rubio goes through a rehash of what the nuclear triad is, which is unnecessary because even the question that was originally posed described what the triad was. And then Rubio alludes to the fact that our submarines are out of date. But are these really better answers than what Trump said? They don't answer the question, which of the legs of the triad is the most important? Instead, Rubio and Bush have an on-topic blurb that they can recite, but does it really convey more information than Donald Trump's answer, which wasn't really on topic, wasn't rehearsed or written out or thought up or on topic? It was just a rambling series of thoughts. I would argue that none of these answers really convey much information. The answers from Bush and Rubio just sound better. Bush says that the nuclear triad is part of the security apparatus that has kept us safe from the Cold War. But our current enemies are ISIS and terrorism. These are stateless actors whom we're unlikely to engage with nuclear weapons. Russia's a contender with us, but again, we're already better armed than Russia, and we're unlikely to engage with them with nuclear weapons. We face an incipient Thucydides trap with China. We're already better armed than China, and we're unlikely to attack China with nuclear weapons or be attacked by China with nuclear weapons. So how is our nuclear triad keeping us safe in the current environment if our near-term conflicts are unlikely to involve nuclear arms? If I had to answer the question, I would say that we should not permit a decline in readiness in any of the legs of the nuclear triad, but that we do not need to develop any of the legs further at this time. The most important leg of the triad is our ICBMs. These are the cheapest, most reliable, and they give us the ability to retaliate against a nuclear strike. The ICBMs convey a message to our enemies, which is that attacking us with nuclear force will result in annihilation of your country. As the ICBMs are the cheapest, most reliable, and most defensive leg of the nuclear triad, they are the most important. My answer would actually address the question that was asked, whereas none of the three candidates did that. Trump rambled, Rubio repeated the question and referenced our aging nuclear fleet, and Bush said that nuclear weapons were important because they're part of our security apparatus. The dissembling from Rubio and Bush is because they either don't have a position yet, or they don't want to commit to a position, or they don't want to reveal their commitments to a position because they don't want to constrain themselves for future political decisions that they have yet to make, or yet to make public. Trump is simpler. Trump doesn't really understand the question, and he doesn't have an answer. He doesn't know what to say, so he just rambles until the time for the question is done. However, if Trump did have an opinion, I have a feeling he would have stated it bluntly and directly, and in a way that's more or less exactly what happened. Trump's answer was genuine to the extent that it genuinely conveyed he didn't know what the question was about, and he didn't know what he was talking about. That's the impression I got from him, and I think it's true. Whereas the impression you get from Bush or Rubio is superficial. You hear their facade of an answer without knowing what they think and what they mean. It's possible that Bush and Rubio understand the triad as little as Trump does, but they've simply rehearsed appropriate answers to questions in that subject. Or it's possible that they have maniacal ideas about the nuclear triad, and they're concealing them behind the facade of those rehearsed answers. You simply don't know what the answers from Bush and Rubio mean, whereas I think you genuinely do know what the answer from Trump means. Trump's answers aren't thought up by advisors, workshopped, focus grouped, rehearsed, memorized, and then delivered on stage. Instead, I think Trump is speaking directly off of his mind a lot of times, off the top of his head, in an unprepared way, and simply stating what he thinks. The result of this is that when you put Trump's answers and Trump's speech into a context with politicians who are delivering rehearsed material, rehearsed, workshopped, focus-grouped material, is that Trump appears superficially, especially uncouth. But what the idea I'm trying to get across here, or trying to articulate here, is that the substance of the answers from the other politicians is often less meaningful, even though it's better rehearsed and more coherent and sounds better. It's sometimes less meaningful than the answers that Trump gives off the top of his head, which can be dishonest and poorly thought out and poorly spoken, but convey true information or convey real insight into what the president is thinking or knows. I saw a clip of the actor Robert De Niro who put it like this.
Why don't you just go over to the Oval Office and say, Donald, what the hell? What are you doing? You're not acting like a president. You just act like a president. That'll start you off.
Obama, Bush, Clinton, any of the presidents of the recent past have been able to speak and act presidential. Trump is either unable or unwilling, or both, to speak and act in a way that's presidential. The question I struggle with is what that really means. Is Trump a moron because he can't speak coherently and clearly in a way that's presidential? And he sometimes speaks really confusingly about subjects he doesn't understand. Does that make him a moron? Or does it make him a genius that he's able to succeed in all these disparate fields, sometimes with the apparent handicap of being unable to speak intelligibly about certain complicated issues, for example, the nuclear triad? This is a question about the state of the world. When you question Trump's intelligence, you're asking a question about the state of the world. And questions about the state of the world have to come from examinations of the world. Answers to those questions have to come from examinations about the state of the world. You can't just sit and think and talk and reason out an answer to a question about the state of the world. Something in reality has to be found. to determine the answer to this question. As I make this video, Trump has established tariffs on some of our trading partners and allies. Countries in Europe, Canada and Mexico, China, and this is widely regarded as not a very good move. Economists and libertarians tend to favor free trade. Democrats and the left tend to think that anything Donald Trump says or does is a bad idea. Our allies certainly don't like it. The Economist magazine suggests that our tariffs are likely to produce minimal results, but they could potentially elicit damaging responses from our trading partners when they retaliate with tariffs or trade barriers of their own against us. I think this situation makes for a good test case. Trump's forte is supposedly negotiations and trade deals, yet a myriad of experts disagree with Trump on the topic of imposing tariffs and starting trade wars. Since this is Trump's forte, he should be able to get this question right. So if he does get the question right and tariffs work out, to me that'll be strong evidence that he is actually a genius, that there is some intelligence behind his actions. All the experts disagreed with him, and he proved them wrong if the tariffs work out. On the other hand, if the tariffs don't work out, this is something that should have been in Trump's wheelhouse, and he had access to the advice and information of the experts, and he missed it if it doesn't work out. I'll give it till the end of Trump's first term. If the tariffs work out, either by letting us negotiate better trade deals or by promoting domestic businesses, then I'll lean a lot more towards the Trump is a genius conclusion. On the other hand, if the tariffs don't work out, then I'll lean a lot more towards the Trump is a moron conclusion. What do you think? Is Trump a genius or is Trump a moron? Let me know in the comments section and discuss the issue amongst yourselves. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by clicking the like button. If you're interested in seeing more content in a similar style, then go ahead and subscribe. Thanks for your time.